Hi, thank you for joining yet another episode of Get Set with Lissette. This is where we have inspiring conversations that empower you to get set. And without sounding like a broken record, and I know it happens all the time, but it's because I just continue to have amazing conversations, and this one is going to be one of those. Not only is it going to be amazing because of the guests and the accolades and the amazing work that she's doing, but also because the work that she's doing comes from passion, it comes with mission, and in today's day and age, it is a very important conversation. So get ready for one. Today's episode centers on the intersection of internal pain and external world events. It's about how personal trauma links to collective trauma we witness in our communities, in the media, and our everyday lives. You see, healing isn't just individual work. It's community work. Today's guest is Kathleen Hoagland, a licensed therapist specializing in relational trauma and complex PTSD. She supports individuals who feel stuck, numb, overwhelmed, or healing from loss. These include midlife transitions, religious trauma, burnout in high-stress professionals, and parents seeing trauma resurface through their interactions with children. Kathleen's approach blends EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, somatic work, mindfulness, self-compassion, and parts-informed therapy, all of which are focused on helping people make sense of their stories and heal from deep relational wounds. Hi, Kathleen.
Hi, thank you for having me.
No, thank you for coming.
Yeah.
This conversation, like I said in the intro, and not only do I think that it's going to be amazing because, again, we have a long history and I just know you personally and I love the work that you're doing. I think now, more than ever, today's conversation is important.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to get into that entire world and the reason why it's important.
Yeah.
Before I get started, I always like to, not that you need it because you come ready and prepared, but I love to get the jitters out. And I love to make sure that people are ready for this conversation. So we're just going to do a quick rapid fire, this or that.
All right.
So don't overthink, just this or that, okay?
All right,
and we're going therapist edition.
Okay, therapist edition.
Here we go.
Okay.
Talk therapy or body-based work?
Body.
Okay. Flight response or freeze response?
Flight.
Okay. Inner critic or inner child?
Inner child.
Boundaries or forgiveness?
Ooh, I'm going to go for forgiveness.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mindfulness or movement?
Movement.
Okay. And then the final one, reflect or regulate?
Let's do regulate.
Regulate.
Yeah.
Okay. How are we feeling about that?
I have a hard time with that exercise because I'll just say like right off the bat, I mean, I love it.
Thank you.
And, you know, as a trauma therapist, part of my work is really focused on nothing is black and white, right?
Fair.
Nothing is good or bad. There's, you know, in trauma healing, we focus a lot on the gray area and the nuance and the complexity. But I also love that exercise because it challenged me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I agree with you. So the beauty of life is, and it's one thing I've noticed that I say all the time is that two truths can be true.
Yes.
So
yes.
I think very often we try to overcomplicate life by trying to make it that exact exercise, this or that.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But the beauty lies in the gray.
Yes.
However, I always find it fun to let's see.
Yeah. One of my favorite games growing up was Would You Rather?
Okay.
So that's another example of this or that.
Exactly.
Yes.
Would you rather? Yes. So that's exactly it.
Yep.
So, okay. So how we feel now? You ready to get into this conversation?
Let's roll.
I mean, you're already telling the people the amazing work that you're doing without even saying it.
Let's do it.
So it actually leads me to the first question that I wanted to ask you, which is exactly that. What drew you specifically to working with relational trauma and more specifically that complex post-traumatic stress disorder?
Ooh, okay. So it's a great question. Long story short. So I started my career in behavioral health by focusing primarily on substance use disorders.
Okay.
In northern New Mexico. I was there for a while. And I very quickly learned that I couldn't treat substance use disorders effectively without being able to treat trauma, because the two almost go hand in hand every single time, right?
Absolutely.
So the first, 7-8 years of my career in trauma was really focusing on what we call single incident trauma. So PTSD, right? Which, it's a lot of different things, but examples might be like a sexual assault, or folks who are military veterans and who are in conflict zones, or being in a car crash, or even experiencing a significant medical event, PTSD, right? Single incident trauma. Focused on that for the first couple years of my career. So I was focusing on PTSD and just being very honest with you. So in my own personal life, I was noticing some things come up.
Okay.
And I, through my own healing work, started to understand what we call cPTSD, or complex PTSD, better. Okay. There's a couple other terms for it as well, which is relational trauma or attachment trauma.
Okay.
And so I quickly began to understand that a lot of the folks that I was working with who were quote unquote kind of stuck in their trauma healing, it was because we were not looking at the relational or the attachment trauma. We were just treating the single incident trauma.
That one incident, okay.
And it was absolutely incredible to me that once we started addressing the relational trauma, things really started to rapidly shift for these folks.
Okay.
And they were able to start experiencing some healing that they had not been able to experience before, because I was using different modalities that I hadn't been using before.
So you notice that old modalities or other ways where you're just doing a single incident and you're only taking care of this, that one thing may not necessarily go far enough to allow for everything else. So they're kind of stuck, for lack of a better word, in this cycle of just going back and forth about this thing, but they're not actually getting to like the root, or they're not actually getting to the why behind this significant incident has created all these other issues.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I will go on to share a little bit about, so again, just self-disclosure, like in my own life, I was really very disconnected from my physical body, which is ironic because I've been an athlete my whole life. And I was like, I'm so connected to my body.
Yeah.
I understand my body. But what I was beginning to understand was that I was very disconnected from my physical body.
Wow.
Numb is how I would kind of explain it. And so what I started to do is I started to get training and doing more body-based healing work, which is really waking up our nervous systems, starting to heal different parts of us that required us to shut down physical body sensations in order to survive in certain environments.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was kind of, it's a really kind of a full circle story. Yeah.
So what I hear, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying like, in your own work that you're doing within therapy, you also start to not only see the disconnect of like why certain individuals aren't necessarily healing, you started to connect and say, well, what's going on with me, and finding your own disconnect of body and self.
Yes.
And in doing that, you've now been able to merge the two, heal yourself, do the work necessary for you.
Yeah.
And in that same regard, then be more present and even better and more effective for those that you were treating and working with.
Yes. I would say just a slight kind of addition to that or shift in that is that really my own healing stuff kind of took place first.
Yes.
I started to understand what was happening with me first. And then I started to actually apply these modalities that were used on me with the people that I was working with.
Yes.
And it was absolutely incredible to see what was happening with these folks.
I love that.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah.
So then for someone, you've already kind of given the like explanations, but for someone that's not like familiar with cPTSD specifically, and it's, something that the random like average listener and or viewer might not necessarily understand it. You already have kind of thrown out there that it's not just like a single thing. How is this different from what most people think of as just trauma? And what does that really look like?
Okay, so great. Yes.
Because I want to just break it.
Yeah, I'll start with this first. So I think a lot of folks know what the DSM is. So that stands for the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders.
Right.
Okay, and really it's this big, huge book that our country has used for decades to diagnose mental health conditions, and then it's really for insurance reimbursement, right?
Yeah, right.
So there's all kinds of different diagnoses in here, including PTSD.
Right.
Complex PTSD is not in the DSM.
Okay.
Which is really interesting, and there's a huge backstory to that, which I won't get into. So complex PTSD really speaks about relational trauma or attachment trauma. So I will explain that. So what we're really looking at here is what happens ideally with a parent and a child. We have a parent who is incredibly attuned to a child. And that's like my new favorite word is attunement.
Okay.
And so what I mean by that parent is so checked in with themselves that they are in their bodies and they are able to experience emotions. Yeah. And they are so tuned in with their kiddo that they know when something is off in them. Right.
Okay.
So it's like, so I think about, I've got 3 boys and I'm like, I know them so well. And even if one of them comes home from school and they're like, Mom, it was fine, but they have certain body language, I'm so attuned to them that I know that something is off.
Right.
Right. So what happens with relational trauma is if you have a parent who is wounded, maybe they have their own trauma, maybe they have a significant medical condition, maybe they have another child who has a significant medical need, right? Or they're in an abusive relationship, that parent is not able to attune to that child.
Fair.
So they are very shut down. This can look like a lot of different things, but maybe that parent is very shut down. That parent is not able to attach to the child physically and nurture them.
Right.
They're not able to soothe them with touch and with sound. They may actually leave the child to cry. They may get very triggered by a child screaming.
Okay.
Or needing them. So there's a lot of different things that can disrupt that really important attachment process. And the word I really like to focus on here is consistency. We're looking for parents that can really consistently attach and attune to their child.
Okay.
When that is not possible, okay, that is where we experience relational trauma or attachment trauma.
Got it.
So we're looking, this is not a parent having a bad day. Like parents have a bad day. We're not looking for a perfect parent. We're looking for parents who over time are not able to attune to their child.
Okay.
And respond to their emotional needs.
Right.
Yes.
Which then creates issues and concerns with that child, which then that child can grow up and hence the relational trauma. Now that child becomes an adult that may exhibit the same exact concerns or issues. And then there is where lies that cPTSD or that relational trauma. And it takes somebody to recognize the issue to then want to dig in and figure out where did this begin and how do we start to move forward. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think that a really important thing to acknowledge here is like, this is where we see, you know, attachment styles are a huge buzzword right now in social media and everywhere. And so this is where we see attachment styles form as a result of relational trauma. And with relational trauma, it does not present, a lot of times it does not present as a mental health, a mental health issue, right? So a lot of times with relational trauma, we're actually seeing people who look outwardly perfect.
Fair.
They are incredibly intelligent. Right. They are high performing. And so it takes a really skilled therapist to be able to assess and understand what is happening underneath that person.
That leads me then to like another question, but I love it. So because of the fact that what you're describing and what you're explaining and showing is that because of the fact that this is like deep rooted and because of the fact that these, for the most part, are individuals that on every day would not necessarily exhibit or seem as though that there are, you know, all these underlying concerns or issues, and yet they're semi showing up every day, but it's that consistency of like, there's a consistent detachment or there's a consistent concern of some sort. What would you say are like common ways that people can start to like maybe recognize that this is more than just your average stress or bad day? And B, how would one, either a loved one who maybe has concern for someone else, like how would one approach it? Or how should one take personal inventory and start to really consider what you're explaining?
So I think that I'm going to kind of start backwards.
Yeah, no, please.
So I think that really a good way to go about this is that personal inventory, right?
Love that. Yes.
And I think sometimes it's really important to acknowledge that that is really hard to do that on our own.
Absolutely.
Right. And so I think that, you know, and healing can happen in a lot of different ways, you know, so you could see a therapist, you could have a conversation with a trusted friend or a spiritual leader or somebody like that. But it's beginning, I think, to really reflect on your experience growing up with your parents or your attachment figures, you know, and it's asking questions like, was love conditional?
Ooh.
Right? Like, did mom and dad only, or whoever your attachment figures were, it could be a grandparent or something like that.
Right.
Did mom or dad only show me love and affection when I performed for them?
Wow.
Did mom and dad only show me love and affection when I met their emotional needs? Right? Did mom only show me affection when I acted like her surrogate partner?
Right.
Did dad only show me affection when I performed athletically? You know, when I showed big emotions, like any child does, like emotions are so appropriate, right?
Absolutely.
When I show a child appropriate emotions, did my parents shut down? Did they send me to my room?
Ooh.
Did they hit me?
Right.
You know, did they shame me for showing emotions? Did they go to their room and shut the door?
Right.
Right. Like, so it's, you know, when I got a wound, when I fell off the bike and I got an injury, was I told to just suck it up? Was I shamed for that?
Yeah.
You know, and I think a lot of the things that I see with attachment trauma is a lot of parents provided for their children physically, right? So they gave them food and shelter and even sent them to wonderful schools, and they had all the clothes they wanted and all that stuff. And so, but there's that emotional component that is missing. And so I think that it's really understanding that even if you had all those physical needs, this can still very much be present.
Right. That idea of two truths can very much be true.
Two truths can be true.
Because it sounds like, and again, going back to my, it's like way back, like, but that Maslow's hierarchy of needs kind of thing. Like, you've got all five, you know, going up the hierarchy. And once you get to that point of self-acceptance and self-awareness, like, there's all of these things in between that need to get there. The belonging, the ability to like know that you're cared for and it not feel conditional.
Absolutely. That's so important.
But I think that it leads me to, and going into this, 'cause I love where our conversation is going, we don't know what we don't know, right?
Absolutely.
And so I think, and I can't speak, but I know that my group of friends, we always talk about like our generation, I feel like is one of the first that are really starting to tackle areas and things that felt very taboo when we were kids.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that that's where this falls in.
Yes.
Because I think we're finally starting to come to a place in life, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you're literally in the field, but I feel like I can only speak for self and the people I know, like I've been more open to, you know, discussing mental health and, you know, seeking therapy at different points in my life and doing the work necessary. And that no longer feels like it's not okay. Like, it's okay to do. I think that, and again, it depends on your own background and your own experiences, but like, I know that a lot of the people that I grew up around, like there was a lot of like, you know, you give it to God, you know, you take it to church, you know, there's certain things you just don't talk about. Or like the familial secret things that like you just don't talk about certain things. Or that lovely divide of like a child's place stays in a child's place. And, you know, there's certain conversations that are not allowed.
Absolutely.
Now I can say that I'm blessed that the family that I personally grew up in, like my mother literally is like a best friend. I talk about my mom all the time. And I also need to be sure in saying that my dad is amazing too, because I feel like I give my mom a lot of shout outs and I need it to be clear that like I have two very present parents that
That's incredible.
Have allowed me to become the woman that I've developed in being. And again, two truths can be true. I still also have had to recognize when I've had different moments of my life and did the work necessary. Where were those disconnects still? Where did things happen? And I've also come to learn in my adulthood, my parents did what they could with what they had at their own disposal. And they were just two people trying to figure it out just like anyone else.
Absolutely.
And yet, the work that you're explaining and describing is what's necessary for when you take personal inventory. Where are the disconnects? How does a person then kind of like from there, like how does that trauma like present in parents, midlife individuals, high achievers? Like how does that show up then?
I'm going to answer that. I'm going to say one thing real quick
please.
first. So I just love what you said. And I think what, you know, and I can also relate to this, but in a lot of the folks that I see is I think a lot of people come into my office and they feel really protective of their parents.
Absolutely.
Right? Like my mom and dad struggled. They did the best they could. They worked their tails off to provide for us.
Right.
And it's almost like they feel like they're betraying their parents if they start to work on like where were some of those disconnects. Right. And so it's really working on this idea of what you just said, like, you know, we have to recognize our parents did the best they could with what they had. A lot of our parents experience trauma.
Right.
And we're talking about generational trauma, right? And a lot of their parents experience trauma and so on and so forth. So really looking at that generational trauma component, I think is very important. And that's a lot of the work that I do with the folks that sit across from me, is understanding where their parents came from. So two truths can be true. So your mom and dad did the best they could, and they did some things, or they didn't do some things that have really impacted you. And it's your responsibility as an adult now to address that. We can't sit here and blame parents. Right. That's not going to help us move forward. We're not going to break any cycles of generational trauma by doing that. We have to do that work now.
Amen.
So I think that, I think that's just something that we really have to talk about.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And I think that now more than ever is the time to do so.
Yeah.
And we're going to go into a different section of it now.
Yeah.
But I wanted this to be the basis because this shows us the way and the fact that it's more prevalent now than ever.
Yeah.
But I do think that, and I don't know if it's a reflection of the time. I don't know if it's a reflection of like where we are in life. But I do love the idea that I do think that more people now more than ever are allowing themselves to have the necessary conversations.
Yes.
And if nothing else, should I say, the introspection of what was missing or not missing.
Yeah, what happened?
Right.
What happened to me, right?
Right.
And I'm going to answer your question in terms of like how this shows up. Okay, so let me just do a brief kind of like overview of that. So how it looks a lot of different ways. So I would say this shows up as chronic perfectionism. It shows off, I would say one of the biggest one is feeling numb, like feeling dead inside. That's probably one of the most common things that I feel is like, I have a great job. I have a great family. Aesthetically, I look great. I feel dead inside.
Wow.
Like that is one of the biggest things that I hear. Not feeling happy, like having everything that they would ever want, but not being able to feel happy.
Like genuine
happiness and joy. Feeling like a constant, just nagging feeling that something bad is going to happen is really, really significant. Not being able to relax, feeling like your body is just unable to settle down and to slow down. Really triggered by parenting, right? Okay. So like when, so I kind of talked about a couple of these things, but like just literally not being able to handle strong emotions, feeling, like a lot of parents come in and they feel so ashamed about this, but it's like, and so many parents feel this way, we just don't talk about it, but it's like my kid was doing something and I felt a rage come up in me that I have never felt before. And I thought about doing something to them, hurting them.
Right.
And they didn't, but it's like that's something inside of them, right?
Yes.
Just kind of, or like feeling an anger towards their child or a disgust, this is all related to trauma.
Yes.
Being in a relationship or in a marriage and feeling like just totally disconnected from that person.
Yeah.
Feeling undeserving of love.
Ooh.
Feeling like love and nurturing and physical affection almost makes them disgusted. So there's a lot of different things that this can show up as.
Right.
Yeah.
And I can actually think of people, like I know a lot of people at some point have to have felt these things at different points. And it's being courageous enough to recognize this, because I can't imagine being a parent and having to sit with, I just felt this ridiculous rage for this little kiddo doing X, Y, and Z. Like there has to be shame and guilt that are attached to it. But how amazing and courageous is it for a family or parent to actually say, I need to correct this. This isn't okay.
Yeah. I'm scared.
Right.
I don't want to hurt my child. I'm scared. And like, where is this coming from?
The where is this coming from and the why is so big.
Yeah. So significant.
So, okay. So that explains the work that you have done and the how and the why you've got there. Now, in that same regard, we had this conversation off camera. And the reason why we decided to talk about it today is because, as we've said, what better time than now? Right?
Yeah.
That should we have this conversation, because you're also actively involved with what's been happening in Minnesota. I mean, we're not going to go into the whole thing, but from the protests to the community response, I know that you and I have spoken, and it's why I reached out to you. Like, I love how proactive you've been. I love the fact that you've not only, you know, spoken out and said that this isn't okay, but like you've actually taken a true like approach of how do I show up and what can I do? One of the questions that I wanted to ask was from a therapist perspective. What does it mean when a community is under daily stress in the public view like that?
What does it mean?
Yeah.
So I think that we are in a time right now in our country and even in our world where it feels like we're drinking from a fire hose.
Hello.
And every single day, something happens in the news or there's an announcement by this administration that something has happened or a decision that has been made that is terrifying in some way, or it elicits a lot of fear in folks. And it's, like I said, it's like rapid fire. Yeah. You know? Yeah. And I think that what happens is that this has a collective, there are collective ramifications from this, meaning that everybody is being impacted in some way. Right. It's going to be different based on your background and your circumstances. Absolutely. But collectively, no one is unfazed by this. Right. Whether you can acknowledge that or not, or whether you're aware of that or not. Right. So I think that is a very big reality. I think as a country right now, we are deeply wounded. And we have been wounded. And yes, we have been wounded since inception. Since inception. Agreed. And I think that many of us are just coming to understand that for the first time. And that in of itself, I think the coming to understand that. Yeah. Just like the work that you've discussed with what you're doing, which is why I thought the conversation is so important, because the parallel's ridiculous when you really like start to peel the onions. Because I think we're at that point of reckoning, and we're at a point of, like you said, recognizing like this is not okay, and we are hurt, and we've been hurt since we've started. And I think that there's a level of shock that happens just personally when you realize this is what's been going on and this is not okay. Yeah, and this is not new. And it's I think that's been an eye-opener, you know, is like things may have been rosy for time periods, right? But this has always been at the core. Absolutely. It just took the really perfect kind of conditions for it to start surfacing in the way that it has. Absolutely. Yeah. Do you want, one of the questions that it's not here, but I thought, do you want to talk at all at what you're doing specifically? Just real quick. And then we can talk about how these repeated cycles and everything else that's going on, like what that looks like for people as well. But like, real quick, I do want you to at least give a light on like exactly what you guys are doing and the why behind getting involved the way you did and what led you to that. So I grew up in Minneapolis. Yeah. So I spent the first 23 years of my life in St. Paul and then a suburb of St. Paul. I absolutely love that community. It formed who I am. I mean, I grew up with, you know, in the era of Paul Wellstone. And if you don't know who Paul Wellstone is, I encourage you to Google him. But one of his famous quotes is, "Politics is about the improvement of people's lives." And I was kind of a political junkie from a young age. Love it. And Minnesota is my heart. Right. And the people there are of the purest form. And it is so community oriented. And when I go there, I feel safe and I feel seen. And people talk to you and they say hi on the street. And it is, if you haven't experienced it, it is something that I encourage everybody to experience at some point. We had a pond in our backyard. I skated growing up. I loved the winters. We went sledding. We threw snowballs. It's just a way of life. It's hard to describe. So that is why I got involved. And I really started to get involved after the shooting of Renee Good. Absolutely. And I think that has changed me in some way. I'm a white woman of privilege. Right. I don't know what it's like to be targeted, but Black, brown, and Indigenous folks know what that's like, and that's what their life has been. Fair. And that has not been my experience. So to see a woman who looked like me, who was around my age, who was a mom, right, get shot in the way that she did, it kind of shifted something inside of me.
Okay.
And so I am a person of action, and I have not always been that way.
Yeah.
So, and I'm also a person who was taught from a very young age that it's not okay to speak up. I was taught to be very quiet.
Okay.
About things that were political and, dicey kind of, politics, religion, things like that.
Those are the things you don't
talk about, right?
Yep.
You can talk about other things that are more socially appropriate, but we're not going to talk about those things.
Yeah.
So, I felt a call to start talking openly about what was happening, and what we're doing there is a group of trauma therapists from across the United States have kind of gotten together alongside a group of Minnesota providers, which is incredible.
Love this.
And we have created a collaborative of therapists who, what we do is we basically facilitate what we call virtual trauma-informed listening circles.
I love that.
And so it's not therapy. It's essentially a space where people can go to feel heard and seen and witnessed, and to feel a little bit more connected. And it is very simple. And other cultures have done this kind of thing for generations. And so it is a moment, I think, where a lot of us as trauma therapists see a responsibility to speak out, because what we are seeing is active traumatization of folks across our country. Absolutely. We have a unique skill set that other people may not have, and so we feel a responsibility to do something about this.
I love this.
And it's been incredible. And it has been equally incredible to connect with the folks on the ground in Minnesota, and it's been very powerful to hear their experiences of what it's actually like to live there right now. It's unspeakable. Right.
What have you heard that has stuck with you when you hear those stories, without giving too much? I don't want to go far, but what are you hearing, so that people can understand what does life look like outside of what we see day to day when it comes to the news and everything? Because one thing that I've noticed is, and that's just in general where we are in today's day and age, you've got a hot topic politically, right? It's sensationalized and all over the place for days. And then it goes to the next hot topic. And at the end of the day, you don't know how it ended, if it ended. And things are left. You're left with these highs and lows, in my opinion, lately, of these moments of what's going on. But because there's just so much.
Yes.
That is happening simultaneously.
Yeah.
The hot topic of today can then just disappear tomorrow.
Absolutely. And that's what we're seeing.
And we're seeing it. And so what does that
Yeah. So I'm happy to share a couple of anecdotal stories.
So
but I do want to just say something about this too, is that, and I don't think a lot of folks know this. So what's happening in Minnesota right now is not just what's happening right now. So we're talking about a decade of circumstances and situations that have occurred there. So we're talking about George Floyd.
Absolutely.
We're talking about COVID. We're talking about the murders of lawmakers that happened over the summer there. We're talking about the Annunciation school shooting. We're talking about Philando Castile.
You're right. So all of this was Minnesota.
This was all Minnesota.
That's true.
And this is over a 10-year period.
Yeah.
Right? So this is a community that has experienced incredible suffering. And so it's this is just to add on to that.
Yes.
And so I want to be very clear about that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So some of the anecdotal kind of stories we hear are, there are thousands of families that are afraid to leave their home. Children and parents and grandparents living there. They haven't gone to school for weeks. They're attending virtual school. They can't leave to get groceries. They cannot leave to get medical care. So people are actually delivering groceries to these folks.
Wow.
There are parents and non-parents standing outside of schools, making sure that they are standing physically in between the children and the ICE agents.
Oh my God.
Creating a barrier. There are teachers who, and as listen, I think you know this too, as a behavioral health professional or a teacher, we are always taught it's not okay to drive a kid home from school.
Right.
That's not okay.
Boundaries.
The rules have had to change to protect these children.
Absolutely.
So teachers are driving children home from school.
Wow.
putting them in the back seat,
Wow.
telling them to get their seatbelts on, because if there's an ICE agent that's following them, they may have to drive a little bit more quickly than usual.
Oh, wow.
And then dropping them off at their houses, walking them in, standing between them and the ICE agents. Women who are going into preterm labor, who are afraid to get the prenatal care that they need,
Right.
who are having to deliver babies at home. And the toll that this is taking on medical providers and on behavioral health professionals is absolutely incredible.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is...
Yeah.
I'm choking. I'm like,
yeah.
I'm like,
but I would say alongside that, the tremendous resilience.
Absolutely.
Right? Like,
right.
I mean, it is absolutely incredible what we're seeing. You're seeing the singing resistance. You're seeing people who are dedicating hours of their days
right.
to protecting people that they've never met in their entire lives.
Right.
The teachers who are working at these schools who are going above and beyond to take food to families after a long day of school.
Right.
I mean, it is absolutely incredible what we're seeing.
It goes back to that idea of the two truths can be true, because while none of this is okay,
yeah,
and while it has been a decade, like you said, of one thing after another, that has just led to like consistent trauma.
Yeah.
In that same regard, you also have an opportunity to see community show up in the most purest and best form.
Yeah.
You're seeing individuals love one another the way that we're supposed to love each other, and showing up as neighbors.
Yes.
And showing up as community people.
Yes.
And just being present and being there and allowing ourselves to just do the work that sometimes may feel very minute, but that is the actual work that's needed. Ensuring people have the ability to eat food, to continue to be loved and cared for, to know that they have access to whatever it is that they could possibly need.
Yes.
And I love the fact that it's that idea of like neighbors helping neighbors is what it sounds like.
That's what it is. It's neighbors helping neighbors, and it's consistent. I mean, we are seeing people show up day in and day out. They've been doing this for months now. And I think that community is absolutely exhausted.
I'm like I'm exhausted. Not even exhausted is not the right word. I want to choose my words carefully, but I know that I have personally, and we were talking about this again off camera, but like we're in February of 2026, and I feel like just the start of this year, like I'm already exhausted, and it's just the beginning of because of the amount of things. I don't know what else to call it. The amount of just consistent neglect, the consistent just like
fear.
Thank you.
Fear and uncertainty, I think.
That's the word I was looking for. I was having like a little moment. The uncertainty of everything in life. I've never felt so uncertain about the status of so much.
Yeah, exactly.
And yet I'm here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I can't imagine being on the ground of certain places that have just, for whatever reason or another, just feels almost targeted.
Absolutely. It absolutely is targeted. And I think that what you're just describing is that's the collective trauma, right? It's like it impacts our nervous systems whether we want to admit it or not.
And you go for it, because I was going to say that is one of my questions actually. How does like repeated news cycles about death and conflict and systemic distress, like how does that affect our individual nervous systems? Like, and again, we're talking about the people that are there, but like I shared for myself, like this is the response that I'm having. So people that are not directly related to these things, that consistent just feeding of like it has to affect us.
It does.
So that's the collective trauma that you're explaining. And A, how does that show up? And B, what do we, from a therapist, like what do we do?
Yeah, so I think it shows up in a lot of different ways. But I mean, what I'm seeing as a trauma therapist right now is like, you know, person after person coming into my office, basically just, again, saying to me, it feels like something bad is about to happen.
All the time. Absolutely.
Being unable to relax, being super irritable with friends and family and colleagues, and then feeling tremendous guilt about that.
Right.
Difficulty sleeping, right? Feeling disassociated. So feeling numb, just feeling like, again, feeling dead inside.
And even if that wasn't, this is like our own cPTSD
Absolutely.
that we're now almost.
Yes, that is exactly it.
Based off of.
Yeah. And I think that I think as a culture, we have been conditioned to just like push through.
Absolutely.
Right? And so it's so interesting. I have people sitting on my couch and they're explaining to me how they feel. And they're like, I don't know why I feel this way. And I want to be like, have you watched the news? Are you reading the news? And we do have conversations about that. And so like as a therapist, I mean, I think this is the first year of my career where I've literally talked about politics with the people that I work with. You know, we are taught as therapists, it's not okay to talk about politics.
Right.
It's not okay to talk about things like that. And so I have really had to go out of my comfort zone to say, hey, let's talk about this. How is this impacting you? Right. And it's almost like they can sigh because they're like, oh yeah, that does make sense.
Absolutely.
Why I feel this way right now.
Right.
What do we do? Right.
Yes.
So I want to point out, there's a sociologist, and I think I'm going to butcher her name, but she's brilliant. Okay. Tressie McMillan Cottom, I think, is her name. She's been interviewed a lot on the PBS NewsHour recently, but she said something about a month ago in an interview that really struck me, which is, you know, we do so much passive scrolling on social media, right? And so it's like we're scrolling through, and it's like we see one awful thing after another.
Yes.
And that does something to our nervous system because we're seeing all this horror, but we're not, it's like passive consumption.
Yes.
We're not doing anything about it. So we feel powerless, we feel trapped, we feel stuck, we feel numb, all these trauma responses. And so she said, you know, the antidote to this is action, right? And she said, even small action.
Okay.
You know, so whatever that is, and I think parenting right now is action. I mean, if that's all you can do and parent children that are not going to cause harm, I think that's huge. But so I think what do we do is we really get honest with ourselves about what kind of small action can I take to be part of the solution here.
Okay.
And I think that if you don't know what to do, I think a good starting point is human connection, is developing relationships with people that you don't have relationships with right now, that maybe are a little bit different than you.
Right.
Maybe make you a little bit uncomfortable. But I just think that community and human connection right now is going to be a good starting point.
I love that. Mm-hmm. So if I'm understanding correctly, it's for someone like me that feels that level of like, what am I supposed to do? How do I am by no means like, I mean, quick plug, I practice real estate. So if you're looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, you know what I mean? I'm your girl. But in someone that's what I do, right?
That's action.
My action is just the human connection and making sure that I show up for people genuinely and that I do everything I can to not only just help individuals. Like I'm real big on making sure that like the human connection is there. That feels very minute to me.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, if you interact with somebody and they leave that exchange feeling seen by you and heard by you, you've done your job.
I've done my job.
Because a lot of people do not feel that. They feel invisible and they feel alone. So even just tuning in, again, that word attunement, tuning into whoever you're with and genuinely expressing an interest in who they are.
Yes.
That is gold.
Okay. Okay.
And you're helping people find safe housing, which is
huge.
Absolutely,
which is huge. And yet it feels like when you think about the overarching, right? When you think about the state of where we are, right? It can feel very like, this is my little piece, and yet what is that? I actually have this other question, but I'm kind of struggling with it because I love the fact that where we're headed is more so about the way that we can show up just as community. Because one of the questions that I had, I mean, and you can, without going too political or getting too in it, like, I do want to know, like, what do you believe, like, psychologically happens when people feel a lack of transparency and accountability or justice in these public events, right? So we've talked about, like, what's happening in Minnesota specifically, but not just Minnesota. Like, we've talked about just those small consumptions of even just a social media scroll. I know that that's happened to me. I'm definitely like, you explained it perfectly, you and the psychologist or sociologist, like that's exactly it. So I know that I personally can relate to those little consumptions daily that no matter what I do, that's why I said I love the direction that we're headed because it's not a matter of the what's happening now, but instead we're looking at the small ways that as community, as just people that are living the human experience, we can show up for each other. So it feels wrong to go backwards, but I do want to know, like in your honest opinion, like what happens when you see that? There's a lack of transparency, a lack of accountability, a lack of justice in public events. Like from a psychological standpoint,
what happens?
What happens? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think what happens is we don't feel safe.
Okay.
Right. There's a lack of safety. And I think that there is an inherent fear.
Yeah.
And I think that actually there's terror that many people feel.
Yeah.
Right. And so when that happens, it is biologically appropriate for our body to go into kind of a primal response.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what we're talking about. We're talking those trauma responses: fight, flight, freeze, fawn.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it has an impact on our nervous system. Yeah. Right. So we're either going to be hypo-aroused.
Okay.
Okay. And that means like really sleepy or just like cut off or disassociated.
Yeah.
Or it's going to be hyper aroused, which is going to be super, super fidgety, anxious, like hyper alert, checking out to scan for danger, things like that. Mm-hmm. So that is how we are psychologically impacted by it. And I want to say this, like for folks who have a history of trauma anyways, if you grew up in a family system where there was a lack of transparency, where there was a lack of justice, where bad things happened all the time and it wasn't talked about or it was swept under the rug, or if you were made to be, if you were kind of labeled as the problem,
right,
when really the problem was the adults, right? You were kind of scapegoated. Then what you're observing in our political climate is going to bring you right back to that family of origin.
Wow.
And it's going to mimic what you grew up in.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people are experiencing a trauma response because of that as well.
So because of what we're experiencing from our political climate today and the administration that we have, if you grew up in an environment that mimicked that same behavior, something internal, you're having that internal trigger because you recognize it feels very familiar.
Yeah. I mean, even if we're talking about things like name calling.
Hello.
Right? Name calling or belittling of people who look different than us or have a different social orientation or sexual orientation.
Yes.
Or women, people of color, you know, the belittling and the name calling, I think a lot of people can kind of pass that off as just being comical. But if you grew up with parents that did that and that called you names and that belittled you, that does something to you when you see that happening all around you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So now let me ask, so this is going to be the perfect segue, and I love that without knowing you created it, because so where we are now in the conversation, like I wanted to also go back into like the internal ties and then like the external pain that kind of comes up and like how it looks on a daily life, but you're explaining it perfectly. So whether it's the political environment or you having just relational trauma of some sort, or the, like we talked about, the high achievers, the individuals that are doing things, or the parents that are like showing up triggers now because they're now parents and they're having to deal with these things. What I'm hearing is like that relational trauma is just going to show up because it's still there and you haven't dealt with it. Yep. So no matter what the trigger is, it's going to show up in daily life, right? Whether that's relationships, work, parenting, or, you know, self-image. So with understanding that, like, I want you to just kind of give us and walk us through, like, even if it's not therapy necessarily, right? Because maybe someone's not ready to like do the actual work. How can one begin to like address that? Recognize and then address it. Because from where I stand, especially with where we are, there's going to be some kind of trigger, because how can you even...
Yeah, it's going to come out whether you want it to or not.
Whether you want it to or not.
That's what I've learned. You know, it's like whether you want it to or not, it is going to come out, whether it comes out through parenting or through a relationship or being constantly attracted to somebody who's emotionally unavailable. You know, you name it.
Yeah.
So where do we start?
Yes.
Right? What do you do? So I'll talk about it from a therapy perspective. I would say it's really important to find a therapist.
Okay.
You know, if you've done some reading or you've listened to some podcasts and you're fairly confident that you have relational trauma.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to find a therapist who has training in relational trauma. Training in PTSD and training in relational trauma, two totally different things.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, there's not a ton of therapists that have specific training in this. So I would say make sure that you do your research. You know, interview therapists, ask them what their experience is, ask them, what is your understanding of the difference between relational trauma and PTSD, to kind of see what their thoughts are on that. Ask them what trainings they've taken, what specialties they have, what interventions that they can facilitate to help with this. I think that's a really good starting point.
Okay.
Do you want me to talk specifically about some of the interventions?
I was going to say, I want to kind of go into what role does like the nervous system play in trauma, and then go into more of like some of the body work that you also practice.
Sure.
So yeah, let's get into the conversation because it was my way of trying to segue into the actual like modalities that you follow, and then also how like these things work. So yeah, let's go all the way.
Let's go into it. Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to try to keep it. I'm going to try to keep it pretty basic. So one of the modalities that I'm trained in is called eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, otherwise known as EMDR. And so this is an evidence-based intervention that was created several decades ago by Dr. Francine Shapiro. She is incredible. And I'm going to just give you my very high-level explanation. But when we experience a trauma, so whether this is a relational trauma or a single incident trauma, like our brain is amazing. Our brain and our bodies are amazing. And, we have the innate ability to repair ourselves most of the time. Yes. Okay. So we can go through some pretty heavy stuff in life. And it's almost like we kind of process that on our own and we repair on our own. Sometimes, though, there are experiences in life that are way too overwhelming and our brain doesn't have the capacity to heal on its own. So what happens is those traumatic experiences, including the relational trauma, they get stuck in the part of our brain that's very primal. Okay. Very fight, flight, or freeze, right? So what happens is, let's say that I'm 20 years after the traumatic event and something happens or I smell something or I hear a song or somebody looks like somebody who hurt me. It's like I'm right back at that event, right? It's like my body responds. I'm terrified. I might be sweating. I might freeze. We're right back there, okay? Yes. So what EMDR does through what we call bilateral stimulation, so that could be eye movements like this, or it could be tapping. I have some kind of special buzzers that I use in my office. I have a light bar too, is we go through a protocol where you think about the traumatic experience and the negative belief, and we talk about the body sensations, and then you follow the bilateral stimulation. And what we do is we actually move that memory from the primal part of our brain to the more emotionally intelligent, rational part of our brain. Okay. So it's like filed away finally. Right. So next time that I smell that smell or that I hear that song or I see that person that reminds me, it's like, they used to really freak me out, but I feel better now.
I feel okay now. And I'm not going to have that same...
No, I'm not going to have that same reaction. So that's one of the protocols that I use. I'm trained in something called attachment-focused EMDR, which uses that same protocol. But what we do is we create new healthy attachment figures. Okay. And we use the bilateral stimulation for that. And are you tracking with me?
I am.
Are you good?
Yeah. No, I'm doing great.
Yeah. And I know this is a lot. I know this is a lot.
But it's really interesting. The nerd in me is nerding out right now. I love it.
I love explaining.
Yes.
In all of these modalities, I weave in something called parts work and then somatic work. Okay. So basically, what the standard EMDR protocol does not include a ton of is like the focusing on the body. Okay. So in my office, I do a lot of work with folks on learning how to do a body scan, going through the different parts of our body, really sitting with our physical body sensations. I stop very frequently throughout sessions and I'll say, what are you noticing in your body right now? Okay. Check in on that. So it's really just getting into the habit of learning how to feel our bodies again. Yes. Developing a relationship with our bodies, because our bodies in trauma get so disconnected. And the nervous system is so critical here because a lot of us cannot remember trauma cognitively. We don't have an image of the trauma. We don't even have a movie of the trauma. Sometimes traumas are so severe that our brains protect us and they like don't allow us to think about it. Right. So where we do remember the traumas in our body, I'm sure you've heard of the book, The Body Keeps the Score.
Yes, I have.
Our bodies remember trauma, even if our brains don't. So even if we meet somebody and we have a feeling that's really off and our body is able to alert us to that, they remind us of someone who's unsafe. there's an energy coming off of them that reminds us of somebody who was unsafe with us. It's warning us in some way.
Right.
So I'm really careful. You know, a lot of people come in, they're like, I don't remember anything bad happening. And I'm like, that's fine. You know, we don't, you know, we're going to really connect with your body again. And when we do some of this work and really focus on our body, it's amazing that sometimes then all of a sudden these memories start to come up again.
This is amazing.
Yeah.
So if I'm understanding correctly, the way that, and I love how we've been able to do this. So the first part is first understanding and recognizing whatever the trigger is that gets us to a point of like something is off.
Yeah.
The next is then seeing the consistency or recognizing that whether it's the, like we talked about, whether it's what's the atmosphere of where we're in, the relationship patterns that we've continued to follow, the parenting that shows up now when we start to have and what we're recognizing with our children. The importance is now recognizing those triggers and seeing what's happening. And then from there, making the decision to have the conversation and seek to understand the why behind it and then recognize that trigger. And then what I love is that not only are you then providing an opportunity and the space for people to deal with the relational aspect of it and really dig to the why behind it, there's now an opportunity for you to also, from a more body function way of like filing that trauma and that trigger where it needs to be cognitively, allowing individuals to work through it logically, but then also becoming more aware from the body standpoint to now have a better understanding of physically grounding yourself and becoming much more attuned to both the brain and the body.
Absolutely. It's reconnecting all of it.
And it's putting it all together.
It's putting it all together.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's putting it all together. We call this kind of a bottom-up approach, right?
Bottom up. Okay.
So it's like really focusing on the body first.
Yes.
And then kind of, again, remembering that our body it's incredible and it knows how to repair.
That's amazing.
And so if we can reconnect with our bodies, we can reconnect to anything, including our emotions. So that feeling numb starts to go away. We start to understand our emotions better.
I love this.
Yeah.
Okay. So now I want you to now talk to people and like let them know like what empowering, should I say, message do you want people to hear about their capacity to heal?
Yeah. I think one of the things that has become so apparent over the past year to me is that it is never too late to start this work. I am absolutely amazed by the number of folks who come into my office who are 70, close to 80 years old, who at that point in their lives they know something is off.
Right.
And they want to get curious about it.
Wow.
And I have so much respect for those folks. And a lot of people come in and they have a belief that like I'm broken or that I'm too far gone or that I'm not repairable or I'm permanently damaged. And my message to folks is that's so not true.
Yeah.
And that comes from somewhere. That belief comes from somewhere. It doesn't come from you. So like, let's get curious about where that comes from and let's do the work that we need to do to get you to understand that there is nothing wrong with you. You are inherently good. And let's just get to work. And I think that, this can be overwhelming work.
Yeah.
For folks. And I think that it can be very scary to ask for help.
Yeah.
And so, finding the right therapist I think is really important. Somebody who's going to be very patient and nurturing and kind and really work at the pace that you're comfortable.
Oh, I love this.
With. So I guess, and I think that right now, I think one of the wisest forms of action and one of the strongest forms of resistance to what's going on in our country is everybody collectively doing their own work to heal.
Absolutely.
Because the family before us that couldn't do it, we do it in their honor, right? And we do it because we want things to be better for the generations ahead of us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the only way we're going to be able to get better is that if somebody finally makes the decision that it stops here.
Yep.
And this is where it ends.
Yep, absolutely.
Because one thing, well, I'll leave that for my key takeaways. I was going to say one thing you said earlier that stuck with me, but I'm going to leave that for my key takeaways. So now I only have a few more questions and then I want people to know where to find you.
Okay.
So now you've explained the importance of it and the capacity. I want you to basically share what's one tangible step listeners can take toward healing today outside of like if a tangible step that if it's not therapy for them right now.
Yeah.
right? Just a tangible.
Okay, so I'm going to make a plug for like one of my favorite skills.
Go for it.
Which is called self-compassion.
Talk about it.
And it is a term coined by Dr. Kristen Neff.
Okay.
She has a website. She has free resources on her website.
Love that.
And self-compassion is a skill that not a lot of us learned. We have a lot of us have a very strong inner critic.
Amen.
When we make a mistake, you know, we're very quick to kind of punish ourselves and to speak really harshly to ourselves. So thinking about self-compassion as it's speaking to ourselves as a nurturing, loving parent would speak to a child.
Right.
And it's a skill that we have to cultivate and practice and develop. And essentially it looks like this. I'm going to show you what it is. Okay. So you have a hard part of your day, right? You were just talking about a very hard part of your day earlier. So we have a hard part of our day. It's dropping the narrative behind it, like the analysis of it, and just recognizing that this is a moment of suffering.
Yeah.
Don't even need to name what kind of suffering. This is a moment of suffering. Suffering is a part of life, like meaning this is just a part of being a human. Other people feel this way. I'm not alone in this, which is true. Like so many people are in suffering. What do I need to do to be kind and loving and nurturing to myself in this moment? Wow. And then like, it might be just like putting a hand over our chest or a hand on our face, or it could be hugging ourselves. So this is a skill that I think everybody needs to get curious about.
Yeah.
It is basic, it is simple, and it doesn't cost any money.
Amen.
Yep.
I love that. Mm-hmm. Well, then what would you say is a lesson from your own work that you want everyone to remember about trauma and resilience?
That we all have the capacity to heal. That we do not have to live in pain and suffering.
Okay.
That there is another way to live. And if you don't know how to get there, there are people who are willing to help you with that. Yeah. We don't have to live in pain and suffering.
I love that.
Yeah.
And then finally, what's next in your work, and where can people connect with you?
Yeah.
I have to, of course, give you a plug after this amazing conversation.
What's next in my work? So I'm in private practice, and I'm not taking new patients.
Oh,
so I'm sorry.
She's booked and busy, guys. That's amazing.
I'm not taking new patients, but I have an Instagram.
Okay.
And I try to offer helpful tidbits on there.
Yeah.
So I really that's one of the ways I'm resisting right now.
Yes.
Well, it's my form of resistance right now.
I love that.
Giving people little anecdotes that might be helpful, or helping people stay informed.
Yes.
About mental health and behavioral health related issues, and sometimes a little bit of politics is sprinkled in there. I have a YouTube channel, which is basically the same thing. And one plug that I do want to make is if you are a therapist or a behavioral health provider in this area, New York, Maryland, East Coast.
All East Coast. Okay.
We have an attachment-focused EMDR training that's coming up at the end of March in Camp Hill. So 2 experts coming from Omaha, Nebraska.
Yeah.
Deborah Wesselman and Ann Potter are coming to facilitate part 1 of the attachment-focused EMDR training. If you are somebody who is working in trauma, this is absolutely a skill that I think every therapist needs to have. And I highly recommend it.
And we will, if you send me the information, we'll put it all in the description.
Okay.
That way it's all there, and we'll have that for you.
Awesome.
So now something I always do are like my key takeaways from this amazing conversation. I've been sitting here trying to like wrap my mind around what those are, because I think the entire conversation are key takeaways. And I don't mean that lightly. Like, this has been both enlightening, but then also freeing, because it's not until you're sitting down having a conversation that you start to recognize having those responses yourself and the why behind it. And again, that's why I felt like, what better time than now to have this kind of conversation, because it's important, it's relevant. And I mean, with just the country alone, it's our 250th. Like, we've been a country for 250 years, and for 250 years, we have not gotten it necessarily right.
No.
And I don't know how to say that nicely.
I think we need to be honest with ourselves.
Right? But this has allowed that opportunity to have that conversation and to just say it for what it is.
Yep.
And I genuinely believe that you've done so beautifully.
Thank you.
So I really, really appreciate that. So
thank you.
Getting to those key takeaways. My first key takeaway, and I'm going to go ahead and say one thing that Kathleen has said at multiple moments in this conversation, and I want us to start with that because I think we need to remember, is that we are inherently good. And so we need to remind ourselves and give ourselves compassion and know that we're inherently good regardless of what things may be there. The second key takeaway is with that, recognizing triggers, the consistency of it, whether it's your response to your child or the relationship patterns that you may have, or your response to what's going on right now within this country. Like, take personal inventory, sit with it, and have the courage to speak with someone about it, because it doesn't have to continue. That leads me to my third key takeaway, which is the idea and the way to kind of have resistance is let whatever trauma, relational trauma you have, let whatever generational trauma you're carrying stop with you. Mm-hmm. It is okay to both recognize that, you know, parents may have done the best that they can with what they had at the time that they had. And it's okay to understand that maybe there weren't things in place at different points in life to make those changes. But when you know better, you do better. And so when you recognize that those patterns are not okay, let it stop with you and do the necessary work to get it started. Which then leads me to also my fourth key takeaway, which is a part of resistance that we can do in order to start the change necessary is to just show up for our neighbor and to just start to be more intentional with our human connection, allow ourselves to connect with individuals that maybe we would not have connected with in the past, and let us go back to times of community and really start to show up. We've seen an amazing example with the residents of Minnesota, and I think that, you know, if you feel similar to me and aren't sure how you should respond, it is nice to know that just being a neighbor and being a person that shows up for someone else is in and of itself an act of resistance and an act of care. And then my final key takeaway, and I would be remiss to say this, especially with a therapist being here, is, well, let me start with this. Start with self-compassion. Mm-hmm. And from there, allow yourself to have the courage to seek help and speak with a professional when you're ready. So those are my key takeaways from today's conversation. I feel like it's, you know, bringing everything together that we discussed, outside of course, the amazing modalities, but she could speak on that. I did not want that to become part of my key takeaways. However, I will say, just a quick plug, like allowing yourself to be attuned and aware of your body, I think also is another takeaway that I picked up, because I do think that we at times are in the rat race and we go. It is important to take inventory and let us be more attuned with ourselves. So now with all of that, guys, sending light, sending love. Bye.